The salt-laced wind whips across the deck of the BRP Sierra Madre, a World War II relic intentionally grounded on 2nd Thomas Shoal. For the handful of Filipino Marines stationed here, this decaying vessel is not a wreck. It's a fortress, the most isolated outpost of their nation's sovereignty. Each morning, they raise the Philippine flag, a daily act of defiance aimed at the Chinese Coast Guard ships that loom on the horizon. Life aboard is a test of endurance. The Marines repair what little equipment still works, fish for food, and keep a close watch on the Chinese vessels circling their reef. The psychological pressure is relentless, a silent war of nerves in one of the world's most contested waters. The ship itself is a hazard. Rust eats away at the hull, storms threaten to break it apart, and cramped quarters make every day a struggle. Yet, morale remains high. The Marines know their presence is a living symbol of the Philippines' claim, a human shield against a superpower's ambitions. Contact with the outside world is rare, dependent on resupply missions that have become international flashpoints. For weeks, the only other people they see are the crews of the Chinese ships, their faceless adversaries in this slow-burning conflict. The Marines are the front line of a 21st century struggle, not with missiles, but with presence and resolve. Their mission to hold a patch of rusting metal in the middle of a vast strategic sea. They are the first line of defense. Every day their stand sends a message. The Philippines will not yield. On this battered ship, sovereignty is lived, not just claimed. The mission to resupply the Sierra Madre is a lifeline and a gauntlet. Small wooden boats loaded with food, water, and fresh troops set out under the Philippine flag, but they must run a blockade. As they enter contested waters, Chinese Coast Guard cutters and swarms of maritime militia move to intercept. The harassment escalates quickly. Radio warnings, dangerous maneuvers, and then water cannons, powerful jets that shatter windows and injure crew. The Filipino captains press on, outgunned and outnumbered, documenting every incident as proof of China's aggression. In recent missions, Chinese ships have rammed the smaller Philippine craft, a clear escalation designed to intimidate and block the mission by force. Each successful resupply is a victory, but the toll is real. Damaged boats, injured crew, and mounting psychological strain. These are not warships, but civilian vessels, risking everything to keep the outpost alive. The world watches as every mission becomes a high-stakes game of chicken, filmed and broadcast for all to see. The Filipino sailors know the risks, but their resolve is unshaken. They are navigating not just the sea, but the dangerous gray zone between peace and conflict. Every trip is a test of will, one that defines the standoff in the South China Sea. The blockade is not just physical, it's psychological warfare. Yet, each run proves the Philippines will not be cowed. The supply line endures, against all odds. For the Philippines, the fight over 2nd Thomas Shoal is about survival and sovereignty. In 2016, the Hague Tribunal ruled that the shoal lies within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, invalidating China's sweeping claims. For Manila, this is not a dispute. It's about upholding international law. The waters are vital, rich fishing grounds and potential oil and gas reserves that underpin the nation's economy and food security. China's blockade threatens livelihoods and denies access to these resources. For Beijing, control of the South China Sea is about power projection and securing strategic shipping lanes. The clash is a battle of visions. The Philippines fights for legal rights and survival, China for dominance and historical claims. The Sierra Madre is the epicenter of this collision. Law, history, and ambition converging on a rusting ship. It's David versus Goliath, with the future of the region at stake. The outcome will shape Asia's balance of power for decades. The South China Sea is a global artery. 1/3 of all international shipping passes through these waters. Any conflict here would send shockwaves through the world economy, disrupting trade and raising costs everywhere. The principle at stake is freedom of navigation, a cornerstone of the global order championed by the US and its allies. China's attempts to control the sea challenge this norm, threatening to turn international waters into a Chinese lake. If Beijing succeeds, it sets a precedent for other powers to rewrite maritime rules. The 2016 arbitral ruling affirmed the rules-based order, but China's rejection undermines its legitimacy. For the US, EU, and others, defending the Philippines means defending the system that keeps the world stable. Diplomats and military planners worldwide monitor every incident at Second Thomas Shoal. The struggle is no longer just regional, it's a proxy for a larger contest between law and power. The fate of a rusting ship now holds global implications. If the rules are broken here, they can be broken anywhere. The world's eyes are fixed on the South China Sea. What happens here will echo far beyond Asia. NATO, once focused solely on Europe, now sees China's rise as a global security challenge. The alliance's 2022 strategic concept named China's ambitions a systemic threat, linking European security to Indo-Pacific stability. Leading NATO members, the US, UK, France, Germany, have deployed naval forces to the region, conducting freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea. These missions challenge China's claims and show solidarity with partners like the Philippines. The conflict is now internationalized. China faces a united front from some of the world's most advanced militaries. NATO's presence complicates Beijing's strategy, raising the stakes for any escalation. The message is clear. The defense of international law in Asia is a global concern. The world's security is interconnected. What happens in the Pacific matters everywhere. NATO's pivot signals a new era of collective deterrence. China's strategy in the South China Sea is gray zone warfare, conflict below the threshold of open war. Instead of Navy ships, China uses its Coast Guard and a vast maritime militia, blurring the line between civilian and military. Aggressive maneuvers, ramming, swarming, water cannons, are framed as law enforcement or accidents, creating plausible deniability. This calculated ambiguity paralyzes opponents, making it hard to justify a military response. The goal: wear down resistance, change facts on the water, and avoid triggering a treaty response. For Filipino crews, the tension is constant, never knowing when a routine mission might turn violent. The psychological toll is immense, as China's overwhelming presence signals that resistance is futile. Yet, the Philippines persists, refusing to yield ground. It's a patient, relentless campaign, warfare in the shadows. The world is learning to recognize and counter these tactics. China's aggression at sea follows a clear, escalating pattern. What began as shadowing and radio warnings has become direct confrontation. Water cannons aimed at Filipino vessels, ramming that damages and endangers lives. These are not accidents. Footage shows deliberate maneuvers to block and strike Philippine boats. Beyond headline incidents, daily intimidation continues. Blocking fishermen, deploying barriers, and surrounding reefs with overwhelming numbers. The goal is de facto control, making Filipino access impossible through sheer persistence. International condemnation is growing sharper, with the G7, EU, and regional allies calling out China's coercion. The world no longer accepts Beijing's narrative of accidents. A unified response is taking shape, signaling new resolve. The campaign of intimidation is being met with coordinated resistance. The Philippines is no longer alone. An international coalition is stepping up. The US has reaffirmed its defense commitments, and joint military exercises now include Australia, France, and others, even in the South China Sea. Allies provide patrol boats, surveillance aircraft, and radar, boosting Manila's ability to monitor and respond. Intelligence sharing and training strengthen the Philippine Coast Guard and Navy against gray zone tactics. Every act of Chinese aggression now triggers a chorus of condemnation and tighter allied cooperation. The Philippines uses assertive transparency, broadcasting Chinese harassment to the world. A web of security partnerships is building a collective deterrence against further escalation. Emboldened by support, the Philippines has adopted a new, assertive stance under President Marcos Jr. Manila now exposes Chinese harassment with real-time evidence, seizing control of the narrative. Security ties are deepening, not just with the US, but with Japan, Australia, Vietnam, and Europe. The Philippines is now a central player in a network defending a free and open Indo-Pacific. The stakes are high. Collective deterrence could force China to respect international law, but the risk of escalation is real. A single miscalculation could trigger a wider crisis. The standoff is a defining test for the global order, Law versus power, alliances versus coercion. The world is watching, and the outcome will shape the future of international relations.